There's about to be a civil war within the red pill manosphere movement. And in my opinion, it's going to take place between the fresh and fit Andrew Tate philosophy of one-sided open relationship and become such a high-value guy that you have all these options on your girlfriend or wife and she's okay with you cheating on her, and between a school of thought which has been popularized recently by a guy named Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson, in my opinion, represents a somewhat new philosophy in the red pill manosphere type world, which largely agrees with fresh and fit with regard to problems in modern society and modern dating. Andrew Wilson, who is Christian, actually accepts the premise that the dating market is skewed and men cannot easily just find a good one like many of the traditional conservative types online would say.
Religion, shame, families, fathers, all these things used to combat it. Yeah.
Secularism destroyed all that.
I agree.
And so
I agree.
When I say to people, and I understand the argument, we're never going back to that, but we are. We are going to go back to that, and I'm going to explain how. It's not going to be in our generation, but if you look at the birth rates, the global birth rates, they're in massive, rapid decline, and it's a problem most people have no idea about yet.
The ways that the Andrew Wilson type thinking and the fresh and fit type thinking are the same are in the following ways. That because of social media and globalization, that the dating marketplace has been severely skewed, especially in major cities in Western countries. Almost every woman wants to end up with a way above average man. And this obviously statistically cannot happen.
Let's assume for a second hypergamy is real, right? I assume that it is. Okay. I think generally speaking, there's enough evidence that we can look at and we can say hypergamy is at least it's real enough. Yeah. Right? It's real enough.
Agreed.
Unless women actually accept that they're going to share a man like this, and it might be 3 or 4 women to one man. Again, perhaps that's the fresh and fit end goal here. Another thing I personally would add here is that I think social media is a bit of a scapegoat to blame in modern dating. Because I think another reason why this is all happening is because of the gap in wealth. And I know every time I bring that up, people think I'm saying socialism. I'm not, but it's in 1980, it was a lot easier to have a house and build a family, at least from an affordability standpoint, than it is today. There was not such an obvious wealth gap between people. It used to be like the top 1% had about 20% of the wealth. Today, it's about top 1% has about 35% of the wealth. And I don't care what you say, at some point, and I think we're at that, it's not good anymore. Like, it's not just envy and it's not just people complaining. It's a legitimate problem if the wealth gap gets too big, because it manifests in stuff like this where you have a declining birth rate in society. The winner-take-all tech economy and the careless printing of money to boost asset prices, and the people that are rich or already have assets, they own the asset. This has resulted in a world of haves and have-nots. And looking at the recent data with regard to family formation and birth rates across the West, it appears that the have-nots are not having children or starting families at the rate they used to just a few decades ago, and not at the rate needed to sustain the population. This is happening all over countries, all over like the Western world, but 2 places like Japan, South Korea has major problems like this, but it's spread to Europe, Canada, America, and other countries. The data has also gotten worse and worse with regard to men who are single and men who are having no sex. I mean, this was all reported in the news, at least last year. All these numbers kind of were popular in the news for like at least one news cycle. And another reason I believe like the red pill manosphere type thing, it's not going away anytime soon in terms of a content form online. And I know people like online commentator Destiny and the genius Sneeko have said that it's dying.
The red pill's dying. That's something that both of us have spent a little bit of time orbiting in one form or another, either you debating it or me getting abused by it. What do you think's happening with the red pill at the moment?
Yeah, I think most stuff has probably like a 2 to 4 year shelf life for internet content. And I think it kind of came and it kind of went.
But I don't agree. As long as the global birth rate, especially in Western countries where there's a lot of media, continues to drop further and further below replacement, which is happening, there's going to be a lot of public interest around this issue. Perhaps it will regain momentum again. Maybe it won't be called red pill or manosphere. Maybe it'll be called something else, but perhaps it'll regain momentum once the U.S. election is over. And the traditional conservative crowd, like the Daily Wires of the world, for the most part, they don't really look into this that much. Perhaps it's changing a little bit recently as Matt Walsh has been diving into this topic and looking under the hood at some of the numbers, but it still seems as though the TradCon crowd walks on eggshells a bit for fear of offending women or appearing to align themselves too closely to controversial red pill figures like Fresh and Fit and Andrew Tate. Another school of thought online is the MGTOW crowd, which stands for men going their own way. A popular creator I've seen is a person called Better Bachelor. And perhaps he doesn't call himself like MGTOW, but his content seems to be centered around the idea of just avoiding women because they aren't worth the trouble.
So tonight I'm going to tell you all the reasons why, number one, you are going to be the source of your happiness. And number two, you do not need a significant other in your life to make you happy. And as a matter of fact, my argument is that you'll be happier without one.
But this cannot be the solution. So I don't think the upcoming debate between the red pill or manosphere that I'm predicting is going to happen will be between MGTOW type thinking and some other faction like the fresh and fit type thinking. Because if MGTOW actually were to win that argument and society like widely adopted that, society would just collapse. So it's not a feasible alternative. Even if it's gotten popular in recent years, it's just, that can't be the answer, because then society just doesn't exist. So not a great alternative. So that brings me now to where I think the debate's going to happen. It's going to be between the fresh and fit Andrew Tate type thinking, which probably peaked in popularity in 2022, but is still popular online. It's probably the dominant content online with regard to this issue of male self-improvement, male dating strategy, whatever you want to call it, stuff like that. And what I think is going to be the debate is between the Andrew Wilson type thinking that has a religious framework behind it. Maybe it doesn't even need to be necessarily religious, but has a framework behind it of actually having monogamy on both sides. So the man is monogamous and the woman is monogamous. Because these two camps actually agree on a decent amount of stuff.
Have sex with 50 women right?
Yeah.
Just so I make sure I don't get this position wrong, but I can give you like a counter example of what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Can you lay your position on that out?
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would agree, right, that the dating marketplace has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Women have changed.
It's just that the end goal they don't agree on in terms of what should be the prescription for society. And I don't think that the high value male thing where you just have a bunch of men that have like a wife and then a bunch of side chicks, I don't think that's realistic. And I don't think it's good ultimately for society if you actually want to continue that society growing into the future and there being more and more families. The reality, though, is that birth rates are declining. Women are increasingly selective with their standards, and more men are getting passed by in the dating market. Women find 80% of men unattractive on dating apps. And dating apps are now by far the number one way that people meet. To be honest, you can kind of see, at least from a numbers standpoint, why that whole MGTOW stuff would be appealing to some men, which I ultimately don't think is a good prescription for people to do. It's just like essentially giving up. But if you just keep striking out, what is the point, perhaps you would think, of continuing to try this? But again, that simply is not a reasonable alternative. But to the debate I think is going to happen between the Andrew Wilson and the Fresh and Fits, I think that the Andrew Wilson school of thinking is actually going to win out and become more popular. The Fresh and Fit Andrew Tate type stuff is simply unrealistic for most men. It won't work. When Fresh and Fit, who still have a large audience, do a show and tell men to become high value so they can cheat on their wives or girlfriends, and the wife or girlfriend should not have a problem with that, I mean, what percentage of men are going to actually be able to pull that off? Even if it can work in some cases, and maybe there are some cases where it's actually fine and that works for that group of people.
I mean, I know guys who were players when I knew them when they were bachelors, and it didn't stop after they got married.
Right.
They just wanted kids.
Yeah.
And even though they were like really kind of terrible to their wives and the fact that they were always cheating and stuff, they were great dads. That's a type. I know that type of guy.
Yep.
And there's a lot of guys like that. Certainly out here, maybe they're more, but like they're players, they're scalawags, but they do take dad seriously. And the wife kind of knows maybe, but he's such a good dad. You know, it makes up for a lot of sins, right? Such a good dad.
But this has to be the exception, not the rule in a society, or the birth rate will continue to plummet. More quote-unquote average men and more quote-unquote average women have to get together and form families. Even if life has gotten more expensive for the working class or the quote-unquote average earner in the West. To just sell a dream to everybody, like Fresh and Fit and Andrew Tate does, is statistically not going to work. And it's therefore a bad prescription for all of society. So I think the next wave of male content online will start to push back against the promotion and the content and ideas that just promote women sharing the top 1% of guys in society, the top 5% or 10% or whatever. Having a religious framework that promotes monogamy, But even if it's not from a religious framework, but probably a religious framework would work the best and be the most practical. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not particularly religious, but probably or maybe it is just the best path forward. But a set of standards, at least, and societal and cultural norms which promote family creation, I think is the next wave of this male content. And like I said, rejects the idea and perhaps even mocks or challenges. And not that like the people that are the top 1% would necessarily care. Most of them probably won't. But mocks that idea that as a man, you should have a harem for your entire life. And ultimately, I think the main reason why this school of thought is going to win out on the internet, I think the Andrew Wilson school of thinking, where male monogamy and female monogamy, and you're not just living in the clouds and you're actually kind of accepting the world for how it is. I think it's just in the self-interest of the fans of these shows or the fans of that watch that type of content to want that side to win. Because if you just think that you're all going to be the guy to break through and build like a multi-million-dollar app or hit big on crypto or become a famous and rich influencer, then probably 90% of those men are going to end up on the wrong side of that. And like in the fresh and fit Andrew Tate world, you're just screwed then. You get nothing. This debate is already kind of started. And this is the reason I want to make this video in this clip here, which happened between Andrew Wilson and some other guy, I can't remember his name, and a person named Wes Watson, and they were talking about materialism.
No, it's the thing about materialism. You
worship it, dude. You worship it.
These guys must have grown up with money.
Bro,
The people
you
who didn't
worship
grow up with
material.
money chase money. The people who
Worship
didn't grow-
materialism.
Shut the fuck up.
You
don't
worship
know me,
it.
you fucking
I can
lame.
tell. I can tell by your speaking.
How the fuck do you think you know
Listen
me?
how reactive you are if someone
Shave
says,
your goddamn arms.
see, you can't
bro.
deal with it. You can't deal with it. Why would I shave my arms? I'm a man.
Look at these pale
What the
fucks.
fuck
I
is
am.
wrong with you?
Okay.
Shave your body. Aren't you a man?
But it's not all about just being rich and having a bunch of cars you flash on Instagram. Having a middle-class life with a supportive wife and children, going on a vacation or two once a year, that's a good life too. And this probably should be celebrated and glamorized more in the red pill manosphere world, to the degree that it can even be glamorized, but at least promoted more. It shouldn't be all about the pursuit of Lamborghinis, even if they're rented, and running up your notch count. So with that said, I think that debate is going to happen moving forward. But, I mean, I could just, for sure, just totally be wrong on this. But let me know your thoughts in the comments if you agree with me or you disagree. Either way, thanks for watching. Have a good day.